Wow. Hey, pura vida, mi gente. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys taking the time to do that again. Always appreciate that. I know you guys are busy. You got your own little world and life and responsibilities and priorities, but I appreciate you guys being here always. Appreciate you guys for real. We're gonna go ahead and get back into a book that we haven't read about 6 months. Um, and yeah, I think we've got a lot of good information from this author. We've been reading two of his books. The other one is Secret Cities of Ancient South America, and the one we're gonna read today, Mysteries of Ancient South America, same author. So we're gonna get into the final chapter of this book. You know, we've read about 4 other chapters in this book. This will be like the fifth. So welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Shout out to everybody in the live chat. This was premiered live. Cindy, Betty, Millennials, Sharon, Maria, Ali Chica or Canali, Tess, Tonre Science, Jerusalem. Hey, what's up, man? Hey, nice to see you here, bro. Much blessings to you, bro. Much blessings. Female Noah. Hey, thanks for the music. I heard it. I heard it today. I found the videos. Thank you for sharing that. My Cherie, aloha. Bright spot now. Cynthia Wood. Shermanator. Thanks for being here, guys. Thanks for being here. Real quick. So, let me just see. So this is the book we're gonna get into. Real quick, it's Mysteries of Ancient South America. Amazing and documented facts on the place where civilization really began. You guys hear that? You see? We're not the only ones saying this. I'm not the one saying this. It's not my theories. It's not my biases. We've read so much books. So we've done so much research, corroboration showing America is the true old world. You know, so as it says here, amazing and documented facts on the place where civilization really began by Harold T. Wilkins. This is from his Atlantis reprint series. Okay, Mysteries of Ancient South America. Hey guys, you still there? You guys still there? Hey, they try to cut us off right now. You guys saw that? Hey, they try to cut us off, guys. We're still here. We're still here. You guys back? We back? Yeah, they literally disconnected me. They disconnected my live. Can you guys hear me? You guys hear me? Yeah. Well, I wasn't muted. They literally disconnected me. My Zoom connection, everything was gone. Sorry about that. So as I was saying, we got the playlist here of the previous chapters we read from this book. As you guys can see, the playlist is called Mysteries of Ancient South America, in case you're interested in checking that out. All right. Oh, I don't think I got that. Yeah. Sorry about that. I just want to make sure we're still here. I don't know what they were doing. So this is gonna be the fourth chapter we read fully. We've read from this book different parts and different, in different segments of this video. I'm sorry, of the channel, we got like little drops here and there from this book, but we read 3 full chapters. We're gonna read a full chapter today, the last chapter of this book. And I'm gonna just show you guys the different chapters before I continue. We are talking about a place in Bolivia, Tiwanaku, right? Tiwanaku. And you know, just because you're here, bro, shout out to Jerusalem. He put me onto something a long time ago, talking about 7, 8 years ago almost, even probably even more. And as you guys can see, Tiwanaku contains the name Anak, right? You guys know about Anak, the biblical character Anak, the giant Anak and his children, the Anakim, which almost sounds like Anunnaki, right? Anakim, Anunnaki, huh? Yo, you guys there? Yo. I see you guys in the chat. I see you guys. Tiwanaku has the name Anak in it, right? And it's funny that this chapter is talking about giants. There is a lot of stories and legends about Tiwanaku and the people, local people saying, yeah, this was built by giants and there was giants here before and all that. So I don't think it's a coincidence. If you guys see, you guys can see, right? Anak, right? Anak, Anak, right? Anak says homophone to a word for giant or long neck necklace is a figure in the Hebrew Bible. His descendants are mentioned in narratives concerning the conquest of Canaan by the Israelites. According to the book of Numbers, Anak was forefather of the Anakim, a Rephaite tribe, according to Deuteronomy 2:11. Remember, the Rephaites were giants, right? In their report, I believe, what's his name? Goliath was from that tribe, if I'm not mistaken. In their report, 10 of the 12 tribe spies associated the Anakim with the Nephilim. Nephilim, huh? So I remember Moses sent out some scouts to scout the land of so-called Canaan, the land of Canaan, and they found the Anakim or Anak and his people, and they were giants, he's saying. I think it mentions them here. Let me just see. It says the 12 spies state that the inhabitants of the land are descended from the Nephilim, discouraging the Israelites from attempting to possess the land. They reported that the inhabitants and cities were stronger than the Israelites and that they felt like grasshoppers in their presence. So they were like little grasshoppers next to them. We're talking about real giant people, real tall people, right? Real tall people. Anak. Anak was a giant in the Bible, guys, if you don't know. And I think it's fascinating. I don't think it's a coincidence that we got, Anak in the name Tiwanaku. Could this be ancient Hebron? Could this be the ancient Hebron of biblical, stories? Tiwanaku. It's an investigation a lot of people were putting me on to way back. I never really got back into it. I was researching it and I just wanted more and more proof. I just didn't want to say, hey, this is Hebron. But there is a lot of corroboration. There is a lot of corroboration, guys, especially with this gate of the sun. Didn't Samson, didn't he break the gates where he was chained up and then he carried him over to Hebron? This gate of the sun is really not in its original position. They'll tell you that, They'll tell you that the gate of the sun right here in Tiwanaku is not in its original position. They don't know where it came from or where it was. And it's just standing there in the middle of nowhere. So someone say, oh, that's a door, that's a portal to the aliens and all that. But you already know what I think about stuff like that. Are you still spinning on a ball? All right, so again, check out the previous parts. If you haven't, check out my Instagram. Just want to promote my Instagram since we just got it rolling again. I got hacked by Instagram and they made me start all over. I had 11,000 followers. So check out my Instagram if you don't know I'm there, if you got an Instagram account. And for my Patreons, guess what? Don't mention the Chasers. Part 33 is ready. I'm about to drop it after this video, after this live is done. I'll go ahead and publish it. It's already uploaded and everything. Part 33 of Don't Mention the Chasers in my Patreon page. All right, we're all the way up in part 33. Yeah, it's gonna get even good. We got a lot of little clips showing. We gotta stay up to date with the current events, what's going on. So check that out. Again, Mysteries of Ancient South America is what we're gonna get into today. All right, Mysteries of Ancient South America. So the contents of this book, as you guys can see, we actually so first chapter we didn't read because it starts talking about space stuff, right? I just didn't I I didn't find it amusing. So they start conjecturing about space stuff, and then chapter two, Dead Cities of Ancient Brazil. We actually read that in the other book, Secret Cities of Ancient South America. So I didn't bother reading it from here. It's like almost the same information. Also, the light, jungle light that shines by itself. We read that in Secret Cities of Ancient America as well. It's the same author. Chapter, was that four? I didn't really read as well. The Missionary Man in Black, Forerunners of the Great Catastrophe. I have this book in my Patreon. If you guys don't have access to it, you could also find it online if you want to read that chapter. It's just a lot of conjecture. But we read The Sign of the Sun, chapter 5, World's Oldest Alphabet. That was a really good one. We read Signposts to the Shadow of Atlantis. We read The Atlantean Subterraneans of the Incas. That was a really good. All these were really good. And today we're gonna read the final chapter of this book, Tiwanaku and the Giants. Tiwanaku and the Giants. Okay. So we go to page, let me see. Where we at? Where we at? Okay. So this is around page 182. Okay, 182 of this book. Let me know if the music is too loud at any point, guys. All right. Hopefully they don't cut us off again. And if they do, don't go anywhere. I'll reconnect. All right. I'll reconnect. Hopefully you guys can see the picture and everything because it says I'm getting an error here on my streaming software, but should be good. Good evening. Good evening. So, chapter 8, Tiwanaku and the Giants. And it says here there were giants in the earth in those days, right? Genesis 6. You guys know the Old Testament, so-called old, right? Torah. The first 5 books. The first one is Genesis. Genesis 6 talks about the giants in those days. How the children of God or the children of the gods went down with and got with the women, the daughters of man, and out of them came the Nephilim. And there were giants in those days and after. It says right after this, and after. So it's a blurry, guys. Oh man, come on. They're hating on me. They're hating on me. Let me see if I can switch. Hold on. I'm gonna switch to my. We can do this. I'm gonna try to connect to. Hold on. That make a difference? You can see. You guys can see, yeah. So you good? Could see. Greetings. Why don't pull in some mass hijacks? No, it's good. I can see it. Okay. All right. Well, I shouldn't have switched then. I should stay on the wire. Oh man. Hold on, guys. Okay, we're back on the wire. Okay. So tropical South America, including as it does the most ancient land in the world, never submerged by the ocean. All right, never submerged by the ocean and never ground under the tremendous glaciers of the ice ages, may very well have been the cradle of the Earth civilization. The cradle of Earth civilization. Do you see how all these books corroborating all this research a lot of these people did? They never told us in school. All the research that there were different people had, they were concluding this stuff because they actually researched. They actually started looking into America, right? cradle of Earth civilization, South America, huh? From which it spread out towards Europe and Africa, into Africa, right? Not out of Africa. On the one side, and Asia on the other. So into Europe, Africa, and Asia, we went both directions. The true old world. We cannot just say and judge what has become known in the decades. Since 1920 is a mere tantalizing peep at amazingly ancient and unknown worlds sunk in the night of time and still shrouded in opaque clouds of darkness and mystery. From time to time, the wind of a freakish time spirit blows the rack aside and lets an urchin's shaft of starlight. It is hardly a sunbeam, glance through the rift. Then, before more than a momentary glimpse is given, the clouds coalesce and the crack closes up again. In Guayaquil Museum on the coast of Ecuador, I have seen strange stone armchairs, which look as if they had come across broad seas from those wild moors of old Cornwall. God, listen to this, man. That's deep right there, right? Those wild moors of Cornwall, huh? Just like the book Ancient and Modern Britons we've been reading. We're already in volume 2. So-called Moors, melanated folks, huh? Of Cornwall. In the neighborhood of St. Just, or the pixie-haunted ruins of Chapel Carnbray, where the ancient kings of Cornwall, or the white-bearded arch-druids, white-bearded, not white complexion, white beards, elders, folks, probably old men, sat in granite seats and drank from great golden goblets of mead. Whilom sky-blasting notes were blown from the bronze golden trumpets, upraised under the ancient mystic moon. All right, so just in case, be ready to dodge the hijack. A lot of these authors, this one included, sometimes throws his so-called white ancient civilization in there. But you're going to see what he has to say. Yet these strange stone chairs come from the northern border of the state of Ecuador. All right, they're from here. They're not from the other side of the world. This is from ancient Americans, where there is a large field encircled by similar chairs. What nation of ancient South America met in strange conclave and sat in these mighty stone seats as if they had been meeting on the Wiltshire plain at Stonehenge, or down in La Vendée, or in among the grey cromlechs of Brittany? All right, just like in those places, what they found over there, guys. So who brought that stuff over there? That culture, those types of artifacts, what do you say, manufacturers, right? Who brought that over there, that idea? No one knows, nor up to date has any South American prehistorian been able to form even a theory about the origin or identity of this stone-chaired race. Again, in the same country of Ecuador, on the seashore close to a place called Esmeraldas, queer relics have been found which are not only pre-Incaic, before the Incas, but seen even to have preceded the old European Stone Age. The haciendadero, these are like the plantation owners or the farm owners. Senor Munoz points out that these submarine relics, which include fine statuettes and busts of almost Tanagra type, and both men and women, are of almost every race. Almost every race? Now, here comes his crayon colors, white, yellow, and black. Is there any real people that are really white, yellow, or black? But you know what he's talking about, right? Copper-colored tribes of America, from the lightest copper to the darkest copper, many shades. In the world, including Japanese and of some that no longer exist, this race, in its unknown day, perhaps 100,000 years ago, perhaps, may have ranged right across old Brazil. For in Marajo Island, a prehistoric graveyard at the mouth of the Amazon Marañón, right? Marañón, Anion, Marañón, one finds in a series of amazing ceramics exactly the same varied types of human beings represented on funerary urns. Funerary urns, huh? Just like we were reading the other day, the canopic, the canopas, just like in ancient Egypt, those urns they had in the tombs. Esmeraldas has also carrion statuettes, Carrion, where the Carians most likely coming from, Carib Carians, they just showed up in Asia. They just all of a sudden show up in so-called Asia. They didn't know the history of them. They say they might have come from so-called Atlantis. The Carians, huh? Cara means black. Did you guys know that? Cara means black. The artifacts of this unknown nation, whose cities below sea off Ecuador's shores are singular. Besides fine obsidian mirrors carved like lenses in a way to suggest that the race had a knowledge of optics. There are queer, oblong-shaped prisms on whose facets are carved animals, hieroglyphics, or symbols. So a city submerged, below the sea. Again, shout out to Graham Hancock. He has a great book. It's called Underworld. He goes to all these sunken cities and the shores of all around the world. And he proved, yeah, the waters did rise. There is a lot of sunken cities. I read that book a long time ago. They may have served the same purpose as the chop or personal seals, which every Chinese mandarin used formally to affix to documents, which were not legal without such a seal. I know the Colonel Bragine has also reached this conclusion in his fine book on Atlantis. You know that book where he's talking about Shadow of Atlantis. We read that book fully, guys. Shout out to you for reading that book fully with me. We've gone through so many books. I'm so proud of you guys. An imaginative man or woman might, therefore, have some warrant for theorizing that the queer remnants of old races met in out-of-the-way or dangerous regions of this continent are survivors from some post-Paleolithic or antediluvian age of the world's history. They are the oddments, dragged out of the dusty lumber room of evolution and dawn history, and not popular with world historians, whose encyclopedic views will, when this latest evidence is weighed, corrected, and accepted, need some adjustment, especially as regards notions of the age of human civilization, which possibly did not start after the ice ages. That's the Haja, he's saying. It might be a little bit older. My friend, Mr. Richard Oglesby, March, former U.S. Charge d'Affaires, who has traveled over the Andes to the Amazonian headwaters country, finds that the ancient high Brazilians of the Mato Grosso's dead cities, and remember, we got a whole chapter we read about all these ancient cities and temples they're finding inside the Amazon and the Mato Grosso region, the highlands of the Amazon. There's so many, guys. So many that are still to be found that they have not gone and explored. These dead cities, 20 to 40,000 years ago, used the same names for the zodiacal constellations as we use today. Just like the book we've been reading, Researches into the Lost History of America. The zodiacal constellations show the geography of America. They're telling a story. The same names and everything, same animals. We've broken this down. Lieutenant W. Smith met the census of the Rio Ucayali of northern Peru in 1836 and heard them name the planets Mars and Jupiter and 10 constellations. You guys hear that? They are a tribe of primitive Indians, and the knowledge could not have originated with them. Colonel Fawcett, DSO, said in 1921. Well, I'm going to dodge the hijack right there. Why not? Why couldn't it originate with them? Just because you consider them primitive? They might be the ancestors, the descendants of the ancient people. So Colonel Fawcett said in 1921, I have lived among South American tribes who have a name for every planet, barring Neptune, and although far from Inca influence, know the sun by the name of Vira Vira, and sing hymns to its rising. Neptune, it will be observed, is the most recently discovered planet, the outermost known one of the solar system, found in 1846. Dodge the hijack. We ain't spinning on no balls. Is this all inside the firmament? As a result of the calculations of Leverrier of Paris and Gale of Berlin, talking about the luminaries and the wandering stars. Again, the pre-Vedic sun god of Brahma was called Vira, just like the sun, that the name they were using here. Vira, huh? Vira DJ. And according to Manu, the lawgiver, was the demi-urgus, or Yahuwah. Yahuwah, Yahweh, they're saying Yahuwah. Of old Hindustan. Huh. Of old Hindustan, huh? Yahweh of old Hindustan, huh? Who's the ancient Nagas? The queerly Sanskritan or Sanskritian sound about words in some of the South American Indian tongues or dialects may cause one to wonder whether ancient America had colonists from some long since drowned land in the Pacific who settled on her western coast and in a far day when the Andes had not been violently upheaved, spread inland. According to Louis Jacoliot and his History de Vierges, les peuples et les continents disparus, this drowned Pacific continent was known as Rutas in the traditions of the Goparams, or India's pagodas, the root Ru meaning war, as the people were redoubtable militarists and imperialists. Their language called Sansar was said to be the parent of Sanskrit, right? And we've done a lot of research that Sanskrit is coming from original mother tongue, which is what we're calling the Paleo Hebrew, what the antediluvians spoke. The mystery again of the origin or identity of the unknown and very ancient and highly civilized race, once ruling over what is now the comparatively unknown and still largely unexplored region of Montaña, Cerro, and highlands in modern Colombia, is no nearer solution today than in 1840. In one detail, this race unknown suggests a comparison with the other unknown, North American people who ranged from the Aleutian land bridge to the River Columbia of Oregon and Washington across the Rockies through Central America to Old Peru. This latter race, though on a lower plane of civilization and culture than the unknown in Old Columbia, yet like them, constructed systems of irrigation canals. They also left a trail of petroglyphs over about 5,000 miles of country. Right? In summer of 1931, Monsignor F. Lunardi of the Apostolic Nunciature of Santa Fe de Bogota organized an expedition into this unknown region, which lies in the little explored jungles of San Agustin. He found traces of a very ancient South American empire, extending about 60 miles along the banks of the Rio Magdalena, a gold river, talking about the real Gold Coast, so well known to the old British buccaneers of the 17th century. This unknown race not only built irrigation canals, but erected colossal statues cut from solid rock and transported them by unknown means over great distances. Was it really megalithic or transported, or could it have been geopolymer, a type of concrete we don't know of? It's ancient, very hard, very durable concrete. Shout out to Paul Cook. Many of the colossal statues had been created in the faces and figures of the great men over whom tombs they stood. In this wild region, a village named San Agustin has houses filled with curious antique statues, which are also set up in the plaza. 4 of these great statues of a race unknown, combining to uphold the marble form of El Liberador Simón Bolívar. There is a suggestion of Easter Island and of Malden, Pitcairn, the Marquesas, and Ponape about these ancient megalithic ruins in the recesses of the unknown Andes. In the Rio Negro, all right? Rio Negro is the Amazon, if you guys didn't know. The Black River, Rio Negro, tributary of the mighty Amazon, are rock pictures, 2 of which strike the imagination. They are of all tall men. And that's from Vita's sketch page 139, of archaic type wearing long robes. One figure with arms extended, the other grasping a long baton. But what is most striking in the remarkable headdress, like an extended halo? Sir Robert Schomburg in 1838 saw colossal hallowed figures of just this sort in the rock of Timeri. Listen to this. Remember, guys, we read this Did you guys remember? Timeri, Dutch Guiana, that's in South America. Tamari, Timeri, Tamari, the beloved land, the real ancient name of so-called Egypt. Ancient Egypt, Tamari, 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 huh? Potato, potato. Dutch Guiana, Dutch Guiana, Guinea, Guiana, huh? And along the cataracts on the upper waters of the Rio Corentin, borders of British and Dutch Guiana. It is curious that headdresses of this strange type are found in some of the monuments of Tiwanaku, the pathetic remnants of that city in the Andean clouds and rarefied air, a long dead city which must have been raised to a great height by titanic forces of volcanism, perhaps reinforced by some appalling cosmic catastrophe of the sort which, I have hinted, utterly destroyed the great civilization of white high Brazil. So there we go. I told you to dodge the hijack. Be ready. He's calling high Brazil the mythical land of the British Isles, which is America. He's saying these are so-called white folks. Or does he mean pure? Pure. Some 11 to 12,000 years ago. So that's like the same theory, or not a theory. I guess a lot of people's, I see why they're saying there was a major catastrophe 11, 12,000 years ago, like Graham Hancock. But they start involving the space rocks, you know, they start involving the space rocks falling. That's why we kind of dodged the hijack a little bit with that. But now, was that the time of the Great Flood? I mean, the Bible only goes about a certain amount of years, huh? That would be before. But I also think about, they say a day to us, no, what is it? 1,000 years to us is only a day to the Most High. So if we calculate 1 or 6,000 times, what that would it be? No, how do you say that? So imagine 6,000 times 1,000. That's what I meant. 6,000 times 1,000. What do we get? How many thousands do we get there? How many thousands of years? Colonel Fawcett advanced a theory which, breathtaking as it must be to many people, and even ridiculous to the orthodox archaeologists, who still holds that civilization is hardly older than 5,000 BC. That's what I was just saying. It's seen by the unprejudiced and thoughtful observer who has calmly weighed the available evidence of tradition, folklore, and geology to be near the incredible truth. So again, a lot of geology, when you're looking into what they're finding in a lot of places in ancient America, they're finding human bones, artifacts, what appears to be human habitation, and layers of strata that are very old, very, very old, past 6,000 years. So, you know, still trying to figure all this out. It also suggests that when native races in South America speak in their tribal and national legends of old and civilized races existing in a day were not, when mountains were not, they are not talking what the modern American calls childish baloney. He said, these megalithic ruins of Tiwanaku were never built on the Andes at all. They are part of a great city submerged ages ago in the Pacific Ocean. You guys hear that? When the crust of the earth upheaved and created the great Andean Cordilleras, these ruins were elevated from the bed of the ocean to where you now see them. Hmm. So we have read about this, you know, this theory that some have, that the Tiwanaku was elevated up due to a catastrophic event, right? 1 second, guys. Okay. So, you know, it kind of makes sense. There is a lake there. This is one of the highest lakes in the world, Lake Titicaca, right? We're not talking about Beavis and Butthead, all right? The actual Titicaca, right? And one of the highest lakes in the world. Elevation is so high. You know, like, how did a lake get up there? Was it lifted? Was this city lifted? Interesting theory, you know. This, if accepted at once, shatters a theory of some South American Indianistas, who advance a story that Tiwanaku was an outport of the Atlantean Brazilian Empire of old Brazil. Atlantean, huh? Told you this is Atlantis, and was partly swept away in the catastrophe that overwhelmed Atlantis. Moreover, fantastic as Colonel Foster's theory may seem, it must be remembered that Lake Titicaca, close to Tiwanaku, has a chalky deposit of ancient seaweeds with lime, about 2 yards deep, which indicates that the ridge where it is found was once an ancient seashore. Wow. In fact, modern geologists say that the actual shore of Titicaca was once immersed in the ocean and more than 2 miles lower, or a great deal below modern sea level of the Pacific. And Tiwanaku sprang from the bed of the ocean, the Pacific. If Tiwanaku sprang from the Pacific, where a terrible catastrophe had sunk it under tidal waves released by volcanism and stimulated perhaps by some cosmic forces, then civilization must be much older than many modern archaeologists and historians are ready to concede. Collateral evidence about the catastrophic alteration in the height of Tiwanaku exists in the Giant's Field near Bogota in modern Colombia. This strange field is on the same level as Tiwanaku, and it is covered with fossilized or petrified bones of mastodons overtaken by catastrophe, withering of pasture grounds, once near the sea, and dead of cold and rarefaction of air. Okay, mastodons slash elephants. Extinct animal figures on ceramics dug up in the plain of modern Tiwanaku, and geologists and biologists assert that these animals were extinct thousands of years ago. You guys hear that? But they're finding them carved in the ceramics. So how did they go extinct before people even showed up? In fact, their fossil remains have been found in the same strata of Tiwanaku. Okay? They had elephants in Tiwanaku. The great heap of hewn stone once found at Tiwanaku, abandoned by their ancient builders, suggests, as an Easter island, a sudden catastrophe. Alas, the modern governments of Bolivia have used these ruins merely as a quarry for ballasting the roadbed of the railroad. Even the astronomers do not altogether resolve the riddle of the age of Tiwanaku. They say that the great Kalasasaya, a name which, again, has a queerly Sanskritan sound, all right, seen it in reverse, and suggests a connection with some drowned continent in the Pacific or Sun Temple in the vast stadium of modern Tiwanaku, was built sometime between 21,600 BC and 2,800 BC, a range of 18,800 years. So, did you guys know, talking about Saint Christian, saying, talking about the Hindustan, in ancient Hindustan, and we believe we read this before, the word Peru meant the east. Peru, Piru meant the east. And Peru was on the east when talking about Hindustan, right, in reference to Hindustan. This calculation is arrived at by using data connected with the obliquity of the ecliptic, or wobbling of the Earth's axis in the polar spin. Dodge the hijack. I told you this doctor likes the space stuff. German astronomers from Potsdam Observatory used signs found in this stadium and calculated that the Kalasasaya was left unfinished about 9,550 BC. But there is some agreement outside the ranks of conventional and academic archaeologists that ruins of an ancient port are found near the stadium of Tiwanaku, suggesting that it was once near the seashore. All right, guys, hear that? And that cast down builders tools found in the ruins in the 16th century for our own era also suggest a hurried abandonment and a far day. Obviously, however, these evidences are by no means inconsistent with a catastrophe that occurred ages before the great upthrust of the crust of the earth that raised the Pacific shore and heightened the Andes. say geologists, about 12 to 13,000 years ago. Suppose Facet is right. Let's suppose. Asia Major, you already know. Then perhaps 100,000 years ago, Tiwanaku was a recent colonial outpost still in the building when Cataclysm overtook it and drowned the great motherland of Mu or Lemuria. Okay, now remember this guy is with the whole motherland Lemuria. But if you guys know the story of Lemuria, check out my video. They got that from James Churchward, a Freemason who actually created his story, the Lemurian story, from the archaeological excavations done by William Niven, a city they found 30 feet below the ground, buried. They found so many ancient tablets and artifacts there. I showed you guys. You can Google this. William Niven, James Churchward. We read a whole nice book, 2 books on it, and that's where he got his Lemuria story because these tablets resembled the Nakal tablets, supposedly of India, Hindustan. But they haven't found the land between. And I believe there was land in the Pacific, but I believe all that was still connected to the real motherland right here. Remember, we read the other day, this is the true continent, the true mother continent, and that other book, History of America Before Columbus, according to the local people. It is significant that in this connection there stands in the plain of the break Paramo on the Andes, at Tiwanaku, a colossal statue, wearing a strangely inflated skull cap, one hand clasping to his breast a scepter of a condor head, the other a tablet with hieroglyphics. The guy told me when I was gazing at this colossus, whose tightly closed lips, thick lips, right, square and powerful jaw, are those of a man of a master race, that he is called Ramak. Ra, Ra, Ramak, Mak, is singularly like the name of the sun god, which the old Sanskritan traditions say in the drowned Pacific continent of Lemuria was called Ramu, Ramak Ramu, and Ra, of course, was the sun god of the old Egypt. Ancient Egypt was right here, Tamari, potato, right? So again, I can see why people think that it went under. See, that's the thing. They think it went under. We still here, as you heard. Might have created the Andes, elevated some of the cities that were in the shore. There is still cities on the shores of America and all over the world. Even in Hindustan, there's a lot. The old Peruvians told Cieza de Leon, who visited Tiwanaku in a day about AD 1540, when immense walls were still standing and there were 2 colossal figures in stone with long robes reaching to the ground and with ornamental caps on their heads. Some of the natives told me that all these marvels sprang from the ground in a single night. There are not such stones in any of the hills around. The natives may have been alluding not to necromancy, but to tremendous volcanic action resulting in the upthrust of the Himalayas and the Andes after the cataclysms that sank the great land of Mu into a pit of fire and then poured the raging ocean into the inferno. So I just want to add here that, some of the tallest mountains in the world today, guys, are actually the youngest in the world. The oldest mountains are eroded today. They're a lot smaller, just like the Appalachian Mountains, one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world. And actually in North America, or America is the oldest. The Appalachian is near the oldest land in the world, according to the most famous geologist, Louis Agassiz, right? The True Old World America, his first chapter. The place has suffered terrible modern vandalism at the hands of modern railroad and permanent waymakers. But even before that modern day of the old misionero, the mission people, right, the missioners, Diego de Alcobazo tells us of what he saw in the 16th century of our era. I saw a vast hall carved on its roof to represent thatch. There were the waters of a lake which washed the walls of a splendid court in this city of the dead, and standing in its fine court in the shallows of the water, on the platform of a superb colonnade were many fine statues of men and women, so real they were that they seemed to be alive. Some had goblets and upraised drinking cups, others sat or reclined as in life. Some walked in the stream flowing by the ancient walls. Women carved in stone dandled babies in their laps or bore them on their backs, and a thousand natural postures people stood or reclined. So where are these statues, huh? Where are these things? Did they take them over to Europe and Asia and put them in the museums over there and say, oh, this is from Babylon, this is from Assyria, this is from ancient Egypt? Maybe they're right because this is the true old world, but they was just trying to make us look at the other place, the other lands and the other parts of the world, calling them those names. Of this host of life like statues, not one is left today. Like I just said, where's all these statues, huh? Where's all these statues? You guys tell me, where's all these statues that he just described? We're talking about a primary source, 16th century, that's the 1500s. He described, you see what he saw? Where are these statues today? And yet they existed in the days of Atahualpa, the last murdered Inca emperor. These are the words of Fray Diego de Alcobazo, who has been visitor and preaching friar among the Indians in many provinces of this kingdom. DJ, so Pindorama, Brazil's old world name, guys, just so you know. One of these statues wore a beard, and the Indians or Indianistas of South America are, and were beardless and glabrous. Dodge the hijack. I just showed you guys the other day, right? We did a video, right? Show all these bearded statues in Mexico, South America, even North America. They want you to think that there was only one type of so-called people here, Indian. Oh, they were beardless just because they don't want you to know this is the true old world. We had different, what they call in phenotypes, right? But yeah, of course they're gonna find bearded statues in ancient America. When the early Inca emperors entered Tiwanaku in the 2nd century AD, they found it had long been a deserted city. Its streets were still beautifully paved and splendid temples still stood in its deserted plazas. There were also remains of fine aqueducts, and fine statues graced the bed and sides of ancient waterways. Among the ruins of megalithic buildings stood heaps of hewn stones ready to place in situ, perhaps, when sudden calamity dispersed the ancient builders. That this city of the dead, probably the oldest in the world, was originally built in the clouds, is in rarefied air, where breathing is a torture, and in a waste of scrub on a bleak páramo, where nothing grows that is edible or can grow is most improbable. There are also remains of what looks like an unfinished port off the field of Kala Sasaya, and ports are not usually built on the tops of high plateaus. So there's a lot of ports being found in Tiwanaku, and there's so much, I guess, corroboration that this might have been next to a seashore. Imagine, guys, how did it get at that elevation up there? Think about what they're telling you here. When Pizarro's conquistadores entered Tiwanaku, they committed terrible vandalism in its ruins. Thousands of fine statues were smashed with hammers, wielded by soldiers hungry for gold or set on by fanatics with fires of madness and intolerance burning in their monkish eyes. Yeah, like Ali Chita Okla saying, first city out of the deluge, huh? One man standing by a great monolith in a square of the dead city noted that a mammoth silver bolt riveted the stone. He called up other bandidos, and straightway there began an orgy of iconoclasm. The monoliths were broken up in order to extract the silver bolts, which weighed from half to 3 or more tons. Yet I do not believe that this dead city of Tiwanaku was ever an outport of the bearded man in black who ruled High Brazil. Man in black, huh? Atlantean civilization. High Brazil's Atlantean civilization. some 20,000 or more years ago. The Inca Chichuan tradition was that the man in black, Viracocha, Vira meaning the sun, who brought to the primitive Peruvian tribes the elements of civilization from the east of the Cordilleras, entered the city of the dead, Tiwanaku, when already in it lay in gray, deserted ruins. Tiwanaku may then have been a city of an even earlier civilization dominating the Pacific, perhaps that called Rutas. So we are talking about Rutas, huh? That supposed sunken continent or land, so-called Lemuria in the Pacific, perhaps called Rutas, huh? That the Hindus were talking about. In the early Brahminical traditions of old Hindustan, like I just said, the men depicted on his statues are really, I think, too archaic in type to be compared with the beautiful youths and maidens and the men of Grecian characteristics carved in stone in the dead high Brazilian city entered by the Bandeiristas in AD 1750. They were a reddish skinned race. Sorry, they were a reddish skinned race. Huh, copper colored, huh? The red man, so-called red man, and people still want to debate what they talking about. Is anybody really red? Is anybody really black? Is anybody really white? You know what they're talking about, right, guys? Talking about that so-called Ethiopian look, burnt, reddish, brown, reddish skin race, copper-colored tribes of America, copper-colored tribes of America. Though among them, as remarkable statuary dug up from the ruins shows, listen to this, were also so-called black man, black man with prognatic features, all right? Body bag for the illusion. Yo, shout out to Drop, yo. Poetry to the Drop. All right. A reddish skin race, but also so-called black, huh? So-called black man, huh? With prognatic features, huh? Huh? And they saying, oh, why you blackwashing Kurimeo? One splendid piece of terracotta depicts in beautiful colors a high priest of the sun with remarkably Egyptian eyes and have it on his fine large forehead a mitre and the sign of evolution. A mitre, huh? Is that all this supposed to be from the old world, the other side? Called by Bolivian archaeologists el símbolo escalonado, the stairway sign. Only a race that had attained a very high degree of civilization, perhaps more than 25,000 years ago, would have reached such a concept of descent from some mystic central sun, symbolizing the great and unknown godhead of the cosmos. There was a college of surgeons who in Bronze Age Tiwanaku trepanned with bronze knives. That's supposed to be from the other side, but you know what they used to make the Bronze Age, guys? You guys know? You guys remember? They used the Michigan copper. You know, there's 500 tons of copper missing from the mines in Michigan. Where did it all go? Where did it all go? The Great Sun Temple of ancient Tiwanaku was built on the top of a gigantic truncated pyramid. One more pointer towards the probable or possible fact. Listen to this, that the ancestors of the ancient Egyptians, of the pharaohs, came from some lost land far out in the Western Pacific. The astronomers of Tiwanaku had all the elements of the modern telescope, reflectors, and lenses. They do not seem to have known the moon, which certainly suggests that the planet was captured by the Earth. They didn't know the moon, huh? So are you saying it might be a projection for real? So it might be an actual projection. It wasn't there before. About the time the great catastrophe destroyed their civilization, and possibly that of Easter Island and the lost land called Lemuria. Another remarkable piece of statuary is the head of a giraffe. A giraffe, huh? That animal, as we know, is not found in South America. Well, maybe not today, But you know, guys, mammals came out of the Americas. Check out my Ancient Animals of America video. Mammals, carnivores, all that came out of America. Horses, camels, dogs. From over what lost land bridge, then, came this piece of evidence to Tiwanaku of the western shore of Archean South America? All the signs of the ruins of Tiwanaku point to a great earthquake, accompanied by tremendous volcanism. The sea, sweeping inshore in gigantic tidal waves, engulfed the great city. Then came a second appalling disaster, which buried the smoking ruins under a great heap of muck, alluvium, mud, and sand. Everything was reduced to chaos. Fragments of skeletons of man and animal lie anyhow among the broken. Massive stones of megalithic proportions. Bits of pottery depict prehistoric animals, which must have been familiar to the old Tiwanakuans. Pottery, jewels, and implements of engineering and architecture are inextricably mixed in utmost confusion. The heaps of blocks of mason stone bear every evidence of having been abandoned by men fleeing for their lives and taken by surprise. Look inside the great ruins today. Some of the pillars were obviously decorated in colors, like the interiors of old English naves of cathedrals of pre-Reformation days. There are remains of great drainage systems, cloaca maxima, such as were found in the old Rome. Just like old Roma. What old Rome? You mean the real one? But what strikes the imagination so vividly are the coverings of extremely ancient volcanic ash and powder, which overlay the ruins of the city of the great unknown and mighty dead. Decomposed feldspar, itself a volcanic rock, lies at the bases of massive walls that it seems giants must have heaved into place. How long did it take this feldspar to rot? Ages and ages, say geologists. Standing in niches of the powdered walls were firmly carved images of the man of this great city. One of them has been found. It is carved out of human bone and depicts a man of strong face wearing a queer turban. Huh? A turban. He has a perforated ear and carries a scepter in one hand and a bundle of inscribed slabs in the other. So far back is his time that he and the images found in the muck of ages are fossilized and petrified. You see how old this is? Listen, this is the stuff they leave out. They don't want you to even know this exists because then you'd be asking questions. Very suddenly, like a thief in the night of time, came disaster on this colonial outpost of a Pacific continent at the doors of ancient South America. Only men engaged, probably in mining in the Proto-Andes then, on this theory, not a part of Archean South America, and far lower in altitude than, than now, escaped. And even so, they could not have carried away any of the civilization, for the subsequent violent and sudden elevation of the Andes would have wiped even them out. Two mighty continents vanished, apparently almost in a day and a night, and at the same time most part of Mu, or Lemuria, in the Pacific, again, which was all connected to America, all connected to America, that had survived an earlier catastrophe, and Atlantis in the northern tropical part of the Atlantic Ocean. So you got these two mythical lands, right, that went down, but they had no connection to the continent of the Americas, huh? This is what I'm trying to explain to you guys. Let's be logical. It's all connected. It was all connected here. Yeah, some land went down or the waters rise and got covered, but a lot of it is we're still here. A lot of so-called Atlantis or Lemuria is what I'm trying to tell you is still here, guys. Alike with these ancient lost continents, this riddle of a city of Tiwanaku, of incredible age, perhaps even 30,000 years old, has suffered cataclysms separated by great intervals of time, and probably in the far off day, before what are now the Andes, arose for the second time, from the bed of the Pacific Ocean. One may be forgiven when contemplating the amazing command of these ancient engineers and masons over vast masses of rock in a way that can hardly be rivaled by modern engineers with all their wonderful technique and power appliances for speculating whether they were a race of giants in stature. If they were a race of the giants in the earth in those days, who built this strange city, it is clear that when they vanished from the earth, whether by inundation and volcanism in some Pacific lost continental island, or on the Andes themselves, see, they don't know, conjecturing, or on the mainland here in South America, Andes themselves, they left behind them degenerate men who, too, were master builders in stone, so-called Cyclopean building, huh? This is no fantasy of mine. It is a story of a very ancient Peruvian tradition. For in the reign of the Inca Ayatarco Cuso, Inca number 12, giants entered Peru from the sea. Fernando Montesinos, all right? Fernando Montesinos has a very, very interesting book, guys, we're going to get into. You know, we're going to have to dodge a little bit of the hijack, but we're going to get into his book. I've been holding it for years. Native of Osuna in Old Spain, probably derived this story from the lost manuscripts of the famous Blas Valera, whose mother was a Peruvian lady and father a conquistadoran soldier. So his mom was a indigenous woman, and the other guy, most likely a Sephardic Moorish soldier. These giants arrived in boats made of reeds, or a sort of rushes, and they landed from the Pacific off the point Santa Elena, close to Puerto Viejo, in the old empire of Peru. So just because they landed doesn't mean they came from across the ocean. They could have came from California. They could have came. We know there was giants in North America, Central America. Could have came from anywhere. Patagonia, down in the south, known for giants. Even Antarctica, maybe. The times were extremely remote, say the Indians, and we had the tradition from our parents. Here was the peculiar story told by the Quichua Peruvian Indians to Don Cieza de Leon, the old Spanish soldier priest, in AD 1545. These giants from the sea were so great in stature that from the knee down they were as tall as a tall man. Huh? Didn't we just read something about what the Israelites said? How the Anakim, how they felt like grasshoppers next to them? I'm gonna read this again. These giants from the sea were so great in stature that from the knee down they were as tall as a tall man. It was amazing to see how the hair hung from their great heads to their shoulders. Yet were they beardless? They ate more than 50 ordinary men. Wow, their eyes were big as plates, como pequeños platos. Their arms and legs were proportionally huge. Some were clad in skins of animals, others quite naked. No woman came with them. Going inland, they ravaged the country, and finding no water, these builders in great stones set to and sank an immensely deep well in the living rock. And today, in AD 1545, so this is a source from that time, listen, the water of this ancient well is so clear and cold and wholesome that it is a pleasure to drink of it. This well the giants lined with masonry from top to bottom, and so well are these wells made that they will last for ages. All right, so that was from Montesinos from the 1500s. The giants overran all lowland Peru, beat down the puny resistance of the Indians, and took their women to wife. But they ruined the women, for they were too big for them, and the women were ruptured and died. Wow. Wow. Cieza de Leon also tells how in Cusco, or in the city of David, Jerusalem, in AD 1560, in the days of the viceroyalty of Don Antonio de Mendoza, a tomb was found containing large human bones, and says that similar bones were already found in Mexico City. Let none suppose these were bones of dinosaurs or other prehistoric mammoth mammals. any more than were the bones of giants of huge greatness, which says another old Spanish missioner and historian, Padre Acosta, were found round Manta, Peru, in AD 1560. This Manta is identical with the Manta of the Central Railroad of Ecuador, where bones of similar human giants were found in a cave in 1928 behind great stalagmites of the petrified floor. The remains found in this cave were of ancient men over 8 feet in height, I just like they finding in the mounds in North America. Oh yeah, 8 feet, 9 foot tall. Yeah, and the stalagmites, testifying to the remote age of the bones, were of immense size. Scientists know how long such stalagmites take to grow. All right, so this is very old bones. Similar remains of giant men have also been found on the Pacific shores of modern Mexico. They found that in Mexico too. In his eighth decade of De Orbe Novo, Peter Martyr de Anguera tells the queer story of that Diego de Ortas, who subsequently went out on an El Dorado quest into the interior of eastern South America. Diego was he who, according to Las Casas and his Historia de las Indias, climbed the high volcano of Popocatépetl near Mexico City. This is one of the twin volcanoes out of the two volcanoes that overlook Mexico, the plain of Mexico's city and the Lake Texcoco where they built Mexico City. Just like Toph describes where he came from. A city in a lake that had two volcanoes. Says Peter Martyr, the Ordaz found in the sanctuary of a temple the thigh bone of a giant. All right? I never know Peter Martyr actually said this. All right? And we're going to read all these people's primary source, all these old books that they quoting all this time we've been reading. And we have read some of them, but we're going to get into these primary sources. I got them all. I got them all downloaded before they took archive.org down. Yeah, so he says, right, that they ordered thus found in the sanctuary of a temple the thigh bone of a giant, which had been cut in half, gnawed away with age. This bone was brought to Vitoria to be sent to Rome to the Pope. Said Ordaz, I have preserved this bone, which measures from the neck to the kneecap, patella, 5 cubits, about 8 feet 4 inches. Its width in its proportion. Men sent by Cortez to the mountains of the south later discovered the country inhabited by these giants. In testimony of their discovery, they have brought back several ribs torn from the dead bodies. All right, these are from primary sources. This race of giants entered Mexico in some far distant day near Tepic. Señor de Valda in 1938 found a series of very ancient grave mounds wherein were 7 skeletons of men and women lying under these slabs or thin slabs of gray stone of slaty blue color. The skeletons were all from 8 to 9 feet tall. Man, just like the mounds, right? Just like they find in Asia with the Saxons, and just like they're finding in the British Isles. No trace of metal was found in these ancient Mexican graves, but there were fragments of an unglazed pottery and bowls with a pattern of painted Greek line meander design in blue and red lines. Senor de Valda took a foot and arm each of the skeletons and showed them to Dean Cummins of Arizona University. And what happened? I guess Smithsonian got involved, right? What do you guys think happened? It has been found that giants range far south in South America into what is now Patagonia. That's what I was saying. Years ago, indeed, Charles Darwin, landing in a fjord at Ultima Esperanza, entered a cave where he found dung balls of chewed grass lying close to the gigantic bones of a monstrous prehistoric type of Mylodons. Only giant men, it may be, could have tamed such a huge animal at that far time of day and used them as they did as beasts of burden. Come on now. Yeah, Charles Darwin, the guy who wrote the theory of evolution, talking about you from ape, he knew that wasn't true. He's part of the hijack. He's a gatekeeper. He traveled to South America and around the world before he wrote that book. and he saw these giants, and he said that the Fuegians of South America are one of the oldest people in the world, the oldest people in the world. And yet he went back and then he did his book talking about out of Africa theories, right? With apes. They had to they had to create a whole fictional story, guys. They had to lie so you can forget who you are in the history of this land. We're just talking about X-Men, you know? It may or may not be that those were descendants of this incredibly ancient race of giant men who overwhelmed the warm lowlands of old Peru, as the Ayar Inca traditions tell, and forced the ancestors of the early Incas to retreat to walled mountain cities 12,000 feet up in the Cordilleras and Paramos above old Cusco, where the city of retreat hung like a fly on a ceiling and was reached by men toiling painfully up 536 hand-hewn mason steps past tiers of white granite walls with a gradient of 50 degrees. The ruins of this ancient refuge city were found in 1940 by the Axel Wenner-Gren expedition led by Dr. Paul Fejos. The Peruvian authorities at Lima intend to make an automobile road to this strange dead city. So this was written back in 1940s when he's saying they were trying to make a road to get to this place. I wonder if they ever did. One may theorize with probability that the lack of oxygen and the rarefied air at these great altitudes were the more potent guards against the eruption of these giants, used to the warmer lowlands. At one time of day and not long ago, either these and all such stories would have been dismissed as mistakes by or naivete of men who knew not the difference between the bones of men, prehistoric saurians, or giant mammals. Today, one is not so positive that that is always the explanation. That's the hijack. If one may believe the queer stories that from time to time come from the Northwest Territory of Canada, giants still exist. In the 1940s, he's saying, hey, giants are still real in Canada. There is a story told by trappers and Indians as recently as AD 1938 that in the unexplored recesses of British Columbia's rugged hinterland, a race of hairy giants, listen, called locally the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, huh? Bigfoot, are to be found today. The Indians say these hairy giants are 8 feet tall and covered, except round the eyes, with short woolly hair of simian character. Bigfoot, huh? J.W. Burns, Indian agent in Chehalis Indian Reservation, says these modern giants are very shy men, descendants of an ancient primitive tribe, and meet in secret conclave atop of the Morris Mountain. The Indians say they have met the giants, and an article on them appeared quite recently in the Victoria Daily Times in British Columbia. At Pachacamac, where today exist ruins that have received much attention from the archaeologists of US and British museums and the Carnegie Institution, the giants mentioned, as we have stated above, by Blas Valera and Fernando Montesinos, right, from the 1500s, repeating ancient records of the Inca priestly caste, built a sumptuous temple with iron tools. This, as already stated, was in the time of the Ayar Inca Emperor, the 12th, Ayatarco Cuso, about 500 BC, the time when one British authority suggests that only savages inhabited South America. Starts the hijack with that British authority. He ain't got no authority if he's saying that. You mean the British gatekeeper, trying to make it seem like people were very savage and primitive in 500 BC in South America, when this is the cradle of civilization. Here seems to have been a case where a Stone Age race were also workers in iron. Iron, huh? Just like in North America, we got a whole video of that, the iron workshops and mines we found. This curious passage seems also to import that the giants remained in the land for a long time after their landing on the coast, though it is odd that the Incas are said never to have used iron tools. Did the giants bring such tools with them? Later on, the giants became homosexual. Whoa, whoa. According to the story and tradition of the Peruvians, for they had no women with them. And one day, when they were publicly polluting the marketplace with these practices, huh, the fire from heaven rained down on them and consumed them. Uh-oh, the fire from heaven, huh? The dracons? You mean the dragons got them? The messengers? Most High's messengers? Oh, but not all were burned in this Sodom Gomorrah holocaust, like I just said. Just like Sodom and Gomorrah, huh? The dragons got to them, huh? Either of some immense aerolite, which before now and as recently in 1932 has devastated hundreds of square miles of Brazilian jungle, or from volcanism. Some of the giants ascended the Cordilleras and outside old Cusco were met by the armies of Inca the 12, Ayatarco Cuso, right? Cuso, like the Cuso Indians, and dispersed. That giants of this sort existed in ancient Peru is a fact depicted of some ancient pottery dug up near Pachacamac, which shows them engaged in these perverted amours. Wow. And giants must at one time have ranged very widely over the equatorial belt of South America, not to speak of the 10-footer Goyases. 10-footers, the Goyases, or Brazilian Curiuqueanos, Korean, Curiacanos, Curi, Curiuqueanos of the Amazons. In quite recent times, who were adorned with gold, or the 10-footer Marquitas, who fought under women chieftains. You guys hear that? Women chieftains, Amazonian women, warrior queens. Whoever these giants of old Peru were, they were clearly markers of megalithic structures, as were the men of mysterious Tiwanaku. Were they an outlying colony whose remote ancestors had escaped the cataclysm that drowned the great land and great cities formerly located well out in the ocean of the western shores of ancient South America, and which, as to one ancient city, was later upthrust from the seabed to below the peaks of Andean Cordilleras as we see them today? Old Europe has also giants. Like I just said, remember I was saying, just like in Europe, Homer's Lestrigones were giants. Some have supposed that the land they inhabited was ancient Norway. Ancient Norway, huh? Remember what we've been learning about these Scandinavian myths and the Celtic myths and about people coming from the Atlantic Ocean, huh? So who was these giants? Where were these giants coming from? Remember that the mounds in Norway and all these places resemble the mounds in America, but they're much later in years. They're older in America. They had the same design and everything. So there was giants inhabiting ancient Norway, right? Thor and Enki and all of them, huh? Where in caves have been found tremendous human arm, leg, and head bones, long antecedent to any Aryan invasion. It will be remembered that these giants of old Europe allied to the Cyclops fed on human flesh, and that when Odysseus or Ulysses came on their coast, they sank his ships and ate his companions. Now remember what they were saying about the Titans, right? In the book Researches into the Lost History of America. Where were the Titans from, guys? Where these giant races from, huh? Homer does not name their country, but says their capital city was called Lamus. One Lamus led a colony of these giants, or so said ancient authors, into Italy, where they built the town of Formiae. Formiae, a discovery made and filed in the Jalpaigur district near Simla in June 1938 suggests that old Hindustan had, too, her giants. Many footprints, apparently human and of unknown date, were there found in a field. The footprints are said to have been 2 feet in length and 11 inches wide, and it was reckoned that those who made them must have been at least 18 feet tall. 18 feet tall in Hindustan, right? Now, a side note here, guys, there's a reason why he's calling it Hindustan and not India. I'm going to tell you the reason right now. Pay attention. He wrote this book in 1943. The country India today did not get named India until 1947. So it was called Hindustan before that. And before that, it was called Bharat and part of Turan. You guys understand what I'm telling you? So when Columbus said he's going to India, he wasn't talking about Hindustan. And this author keeps telling you Hindustan in reference to the country today called India, which was named in 1947 that. All right. That's a big note, actually, to understand. I have, for a very good reason, alluded to the worldwide provenance of these giants who, said the Babylonian priests, corroborated by Eupolemus, built ancient Babylon after escaping the great deluge. They were said to have erected a Tower of Babel and were great astrologers who received from their fathers, the sons of God, the sons of gods, Elohim, we're talking about angels, falling, all secret learning which they imparted to the ancient priests of Babylon, according to Eusebius, from the book Vide, de Preparatio et Demonstratio Evangelica, and deposited in the Babylonian temples records of the periodical cataclysms they themselves had witnessed. Some have been tempted to euhemerize. Wow, euhemerize these giants of the pre and post Diluvian eras as leaders of a lower Atlantean caste in that old island continent, who had revolted against the ruler caste, as the Titans did against the gods. Okay, listen, where's the Titans from? Just talking about the Americas. Don't get lost. Or Lucifer against the ruler of the heavenly fields. It is, however, evident that the giants in the ancient world cannot all be allegorized away in this fashion. They certainly existed, unless the reader be prepared to dismiss all these evidences from South America, Old Europe, or Old Asia, or North America, right? Who they were, whence they came, and what relation they bore, if any, to the lost world races of Atlantis or Rutas, Lemuria, ancient America, right? All these tags are still enigmas. The legends of the Formorians in Old Ireland. Are we talking about Hamites, giant Hamites, or Gog, Magog in ancient Britain? Gog and Magog, huh? Japhet's kids, huh? And of Albion, the giant god of Old Britain, seems to enshrine ancestral memories of such people. Some light may have been thrown on the riddle by the discovery in western Missouri forests in 1875 of conical mounds. This is what we've been, wow, we read this in that book, History of America Before Columbus, the conical mounds that resemble the ones in Europe, but the ones in America are much, much older. So let's see what they're saying, right? Western Missouri forest, 1875, they found the conical mounds on high bluffs overlooking the Missouri River, which were the tumuli of skeletons with head bones of monstrous size. The lower jaw of one skeleton was double the size of that of a civilized man. The thigh bone looked like that of a horse, but the receding human or anthropoid frontal bone indicated a low order of intellect. These skeletons were found in sitting posture, with flint knives and scrapers. Are they, then, of Paleolithic age? One more we grope dimly through the mist and darkness of very mysterious ages in the world's most mysterious continent, perhaps at a time before the ice ages had gripped our planet, and when glaciers still existing above the level of 12,000 feet reached as far south as the Sierra Nevada, including a large glacier about 250 miles north of Los Angeles, California. The last great ice age is said to have ended some 15,000 years ago, leaving as echo soundings made with dynamite recently indicated a continental ice shear in the interior of Greenland, which is over a mile deep. Thousands of years hence, much of the ice may return to the sea, and the polar zones become what they have been before, lush, warm lands with tropical vegetation reaching as far north as the Canadian border. Okay, lush tropical forests. So who says we're not in a little ice age right now? Who's to say that we're not in a little ice age right now, and the Arctic and Antarctica, they have been ice free. We've seen the maps, right? We've seen the old maps, right? Ice free Antarctica. Who's to say we're not in a little ice age right now, huh? Shout out to Drop for that, man. Done a lot of research on that. Scientists have arrived at the conclusion that the mystery of the cause of the last ice age is that volcanic activity with heat and fire touched off the ice age. This theory, one of others, seems true, perhaps in a way not quite appreciated in view of what one has written in this book. Man, it is said, arrived in North American continent about 15,000 years ago. That's the hijack. That's their Bering Strait theories, right? At a time when an animal trap existed in what today are the McKittrick Heart Seeps in San Joaquin Valley. All right, so just want to point out, right? I mean, this is just one example, right? What did they find in New Mexico recently? Human footprints, right? Human footprints, 22 to 25,000 years old. So we already debunked that whole Bering Strait, theory. An earlier prehistoric animal trap is found in La Brea, tar pits of Los Angeles, contemporary with a day some 25,000 years ago, like I just said, matching the human footprints, when imperial mammoths 13 feet high at the shoulder. All right, they always want us to think that it was only mammoths, hairy elephants. No, we had regular looking elephants here, guys. I've shown this on my elephant video. We had all kinds of elephants here. Even the ancestors of elephants all over the Americas, they found the bones. So they're finding this and La Brea tar pits. We know that, all these extinct so-called animals, right? When imperial mammoths, 13 feet high at the shoulder, huge wolves, saber-toothed tigers, camels. Camels originated in North America, horses as well. Sloths and bears roamed the North and South American lands. The reader may remember the camel found carved in a pottery statuette in the ruins of Tiwanaku, and also the figures of a horse and a pre-Incaic inscription existing ages before the conquistadores introduced the Castilian genet into the Spanish Indies, okay? Horses were here. Horses originated in America. We're not making this up. Google it right now. Put where did the horses originate, and I'll tell you North America. The scientists know this. And when the Europeans got here, they wrote that they did see wild horses here and that some of the Indians had horses. They wrote this stuff. Check out my ancient horse video of America. All that has gone before may suggest to some that a rectification of a chronological and paleontological character seems long overdue in relation to the remote date when civilized man appeared in America. Maybe in the pre-cataclysmic ages, not 15,000 but 25,000 years is nearer the truth in relation to man's appearance in America. Dodge the hijack. Always got to be coming in, right? We couldn't have just been from here. This is the true old world. This is the oldest land. This is the oldest land in the world. So why wouldn't man also come out of here on its own too? We may now return for a last glance into the dimmed mirror of prehistory, in which it reflected a hazy picture of the age of giants, whose work was the cyclopean city of Tiwanaku, the great and the mysterious. It is a riddle of the dark backward and abysm of time upon which probably no last word may ever be said. In a preceding part of this chapter, concerning the problem of the age of Tiwanaku, I refer to the astronomical calculations of the Potsdam Observatory staff who used certain data, in part furnished by the remains of the Kalasasaya or Sun Temple at Tiwanaku, to determine the date of this extremely ancient civilization. I have left to the last some comments on the very interesting theories advanced by Mr. H.S. Bellamy in his fascinating book, Built Before the Flood. Built Before the Flood. Faber and Faber, London, 1943. I think we got another book to get into, right? That sounds pretty interesting. He visualizes a heaping of the tides, swelling from northern and southern hemispheres in a great girdle, roughly corresponding with the zones between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. He appears to suggest this phenomenon occurred some quarter of a million years ago under the pull of a disintegrating satellite that preceded the capture of the present moon. The present moon, huh? It wasn't there before. His interesting theories are inspired by the glacial cosmogony and Weltschler studies of the late Hans Horbiger, Maschinen, Maschineningenieur of Atzgerdorf, near Vienna. According to Mr. Bellamy, the dead city of Tiwanaku was surrounded by a rampart of the Andes, which barred off the rising waters of the Pacific, until under increasing pull and pressure from the disintegrating satellite, those waters spilled over and drowned the city. Twice the city was drowned, while on the Inter-Andean Plateau lived races who had sought refuge, there from the catastrophes that had in the North and South hemispheres drowned the populations. The final cataclysms happened, he says, about 13,500 years ago, when the ancient metropolis was to have formed a source of building materials or to be repaired. Hey, what you guys talking about, Africa, man? Okay. Before the final disaster, there had been no satellite accompanying the Earth. He's saying there was no moon. The first moon having been disintegrated and its debris thrown onto the Earth. You guys hear that? And after the lunar interregnum, our present moon had approached near the Earth and been attracted into its gravitational field. So remember, this guy likes the whole space stuff. So is he talking about that's when the projection of the moon came about? Huh. The survivors lapsed into primitivism, and the ruins were henceforth avoided and put under taboo. We are asked to believe that this interregnum, time between the death and disintegration of number one satellite and the capture of our present moon, lasted about 230,000 years, and that in all this immense stretch of time, survivors from the cataclysms that ruined classic Tiwanaku were living in the lush, warm lowlands on the paradisial coast of western South America. When the present moon threatened them with another inundation, they sent pioneering scouts to view the uplands where stood the ruins of Tiwanaku, which were merely a dim memory or myth among them, as well it might be after more than 200,000 years. So remember, all this is conjecture right now, what he's saying about the moon and the cataclysm and space balls. All one can command is the famous remark of the celebrated Domini and Scott's novel, Mon Tis Prodigious, a race whose paradise on the Pacific littoral lasted 230,000 years. I say nothing about this theory existing in a vacuum that apparently has no relation to the cataclysmic laws of a continent or continental islands in the Pacific Ocean. Okay? He just even admitted this is a theory about spaceballs in a vacuum, so-called space. I didn't say it. In its second prime under a Bronze Age race, which had developed a lost technique of tempering bronze that could cut and shape the very hard stone used andesite, their world was very different. Frequent volcanisms shook the country, and the tremendous megalithic structures were deeply embedded in the ground in order to withstand Tellurian shocks. At that time, he says, the climate of the Andean Altiplano, on which the ruins stand, must have been tropical. All right, that was tropical there. It is, however, I suggest, very difficult to understand how, at a height of over 12,000 feet, conditions such as these prevailed, whereas Mr. Bellamy points out the great structures of Tiwanaku in Quichua, meaning city of darkness or wanting light, were built unroofed and open to the sky as assembly places for great multitudes. Nor unless the region of the dead city, the Altiplano, once stood at a far lower level and a day before the rise of the Andes to their present elevation, can one comprehend how prehistoric animals existing only in lush, warm regions and unable to withstand glacial temperatures could have ranged these regions, or how fossil fishes of tropical type can be found in the strata around the dead city. All right, there you go. Fossil fishes. It's still found there, right? In Tiwanaku. Even if, as Mr. Bellamy following Horbiger's glacial theory, urges the pull of the disintegrating satellite that preceded in Earth's skies the capture of our present moon, caused the belt of our atmosphere to be drawn off from poles in northern regions into a relatively thicker blanket over this region of archaic South America, as well as over other sectors environed by this girdle tides of global cincturing range round the waist of our Earth. Then this denser belt of air could hardly have created lush tropical conditions at the height of 12,000 feet in the clouds at which Tiwanaku, even then, he presupposes was situated. One has a comparable state in the highlands of Kenya colony on the equator, where despite the fact that the region is on the equator, the cold at great heights is not lessened in the fact that below is an atmospheric belt of relatively greater density. Mr. Bellamy, too, is opposed to the theory of scientists that there occurred about the end of the Tertiary Age a catastrophically sudden and unbalanced rise of South America out of the waters of the ocean, which elevated the continent more strongly in the north than the south. When this occurred, they say scientists, the Andes must have been jerked up more than 12,500 feet on an average. This catastrophic movement, by the way, not confined to this region of our world, exposed a continental shelf which is now the arid lowlands of Peru and North Chile, and raised into regions of rarefied air this dead city of Tiwanaku, as well as the mountain ramparts girdling it, all of which, prior to their sudden elevation by tremendous forces of both Tellurian and cosmic origin, had been submarine mountains, with a paramo, or plain set in their crests, also undersea. We ain't talking about space balls, all right, guys? So if you're still spinning on a ball, then I can't help you, man. When this happened some 13,500 years ago, say the dead city of Tiwanaku had simply risen dead from its watery tomb under the old Pacific Ocean, and what are now the Andean Cordilleras with it. The problem is clearly one of chronology and resolves itself into one main question. Just how old are the eastern and western Cordilleras of the Andes? Pole shifts? Yeah, see, you guys are still talking about space stuff, though. Is it really pole shifts? That question has not really been resolved. The remarkable unevenness of the forces would account for the curious fact that shore or strand lines found on mountain slopes and walls on the Bolivian Altiplano and denoting the beaches of ancient seas or ancient sea levels are not level either with the present level of Lake Titicaca or with that of the modern Pacific Ocean. One other point may be noted. The mitre of the high priest in terracotta found under the earth at Tiwanaku of today, it is depicted in pages 90, 132 supra of my own book. This archaic and very beautifully made and designed statuette bears on its polychrome cap 4 quadrants of symmetrical symbols which are in the form of el símbolo escalonado, with a black crosslet and orb in the center of the design. They are the subject of a rather fantastic suggestion by Mr. Bellamy, who says that the pictograph on the cap of this mitre of a Tiwanaku high priest denotes a highly conventionalized map of the world known to the inhabitants of the Andinian Life Asylum, which also features certain magical or religious elements. But it is not a far-fetched notion. Surely the world as shown by these very ancient races could not have been so symmetrical in the shape of all its continental outlines as to be capable of representation in this way. I advance the theory, and I am not alone in it, that the símbolo escalonado found also on later Mayan glyphs on artifacts all over South America and today in native non-Christian wayside altars at Carangas, and in the form of a sacred volute at Chimbote, Peru, was the sign of evolution from the Godhead, denoted by the central mystical sun of the universe, the unknown god of or Dias, of whom in old Hindustan Brahma was the demi-Orgus, thus the hijack with their space balls. As for the black crosslet and yellow orb in the middle of the cap of the Mitre, with the stairway signs on all four sides, which Mr. Bellamy calls a heaven pillar, magically warding off lunar dangers from the earth, they noted, he says, by the hieroglyphs of the four stairway signs that crosslet is identical in origin with the Venus sign of reproduction, the phallic symbol of Coition, the cross or Egyptian Tau, found on the glyphs in the Mayan, Guatemala, and Yucatan, and on the tombs of the Etruscans in Old Italy. And where were the Etruscans coming from? They say they are Atlanteans. Oh man, we got the drop. We got a lot of research on this, guys. In this interpretation of mine be correct, the yellow orb in the middle of the black crosslet denotes not Mr. Bellamy's evil yellow, former Tellurian pre-Luna satellite of the Earth, but the mystic central sun of the universe. Central sun, huh? What if the Earth is the center? What if everything is spinning around us, which the sun of our own planetary system symbolized? After all, these ancient men of Tiwanaku were sun worshippers, and so far more likely to set his sign on the dome of a mitre than a yellow disc of merely evil significance. One might as well have expected a medieval abbot to set the horns, tail, and trident of the evil one, not on a gargoyle, but on the topmost turrets of a minster or abbey, rather than the Christian cross. I hope Mr. Bellamy will forgive me for my constructive criticism of a part of his very interesting, illuminating book. Many of us are faced by the danger of pressing our theories too far. Okay? And that is the end of this book, guys. Literally. And we got a lot of sources here to go through. We got a lot of sources I got to go back to and check out. That's the thing I like about these, books. They got a lot of sources they're quoting. They're not just making it up from their head. They're just quoting a lot of different people. All right. I can't explain it now, what I mean about the spinning balls, guys, but I know a lot of you still into the whole space thing. And even not, you're still trying to add space ideas into the flat earth. Okay. And so what if it was different? Like a clock. Like we're in a clock, right? Flat clock. And you know how a clock spins, or then there's different parts of, how they say the moon is projecting even the other lands that we don't see, right? So what if the light or our light is in our part right now, but what if that light keeps moving in different stages, and then that's why there's cold here and warm here, one place, and then cold here, and I can't explain it, but there's a lot of so-called flat earth channels that show you the diagrams of this spin, you know? So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Check out Drop, check out 42 the Drop radio on the a flat drop. Like, I mean, it's hours and hours of research. We're not just making this up, right? But I hope you guys enjoyed the reading. I mean, I thought this was a pretty interesting chapter. All right. And again, if you missed the previous readings of this book, I have read already, that's 4 chapters, complete chapters of this book. I have the playlist ready for you. Mysteries of Ancient South America is the name. You can go to my playlist tab. All right. And check out the previous videos. They're really good. I mean, if you like this chapter, you'll like all the previous chapters as well. Yeah, like the gears on a clock, just like, in the book of Enoch, it explains it. That's from, a machinery, huh? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So Tiwanaku, right? Tiwanaku, Anak. Anak, just like Anak in the Bible. Anak, you guys see? Anak, Tiwa. The T means something. Anaku, Tiwanaku. The four winds or the four children, the four of them, his three sons and him were four of them. The Anakim, the giants, Tiwanaku. Mysteries of Ancient South America. Let me just show you guys the book again. Mysteries of Ancient South America. Amazing and documented facts on the place where civilization really began. All right? We're past thinking and theorizing. We know this is the true old world. 8 years strong, over 1,000 presentations is how we got to this conclusion. With research is how we got to this conclusion. With sources, historical records, logic, anthropology, archaeology, geology, philology, all the ologies is how we got to this conclusion. And I appreciate all of you guys being on this journey with me. I appreciate you guys all these years. I know a lot of you have been following me ever since the beginning. And if you're here for at least 5 years, 4 years, I appreciate you too. 3 years, 2 years, even 1 year. Even if you just join me, get to know me. Go back on the previous researches we've done. Go back all the way back to the beginning. Work your way up. You'll see how we got to this conclusion that this is the true old world. And we're realizing there was a lot of people already telling us the same thing before the 1900s and even into the early 1900s. They just didn't tell us. They kept all this knowledge, all this research from us, and they created their textbooks, their curriculums, and they dumbed us down. And they came with their out of Africa theories, their Bering Strait theories. Theories, right? Theories. Theories are not facts. In case you don't know, a theory is not a fact. That's why they call it a theory. And believe it or not, even most scientific laws come from theories. If you guys didn't know that, they're all based on theories, the scientific laws. All right. Yeah. Hey, man, this was fun. I liked reading this. It was pretty cool. Kind of corroborated a lot of the stuff we've been reading recently. It's amazing, different authors that never probably read from each other or knew each other, different time periods from different parts of the world, all kind of telling us the same thing. America's the true old world, America is the true old world. Again, this was Mysteries of Ancient South America, Chapter 8. So, congratulations, guys. A whole other book you read. Trust me, we read most of this book. Even the chapters I didn't read, we read them in his other book, Secret Cities of Ancient South America. It's like literally the same info. I know, because I went through it. And we're still going to finish that book. We still got like a couple chapters in that book to read. So, we're going to definitely get into that. We're going to go out with a beat. We're going to go out with an instrumental from our good brother, Olmec 12. He's in the chat right now. It's called Olmeca. Olmeca. We're going to go out with that. Again, appreciate all your support all these years. Appreciate my patrons. Again, guys, I forgot to tell you. I forgot to remind you. Hold up. We're literally about to drop number 33 of Don't Mention the Chazars. Don't mention the Chazars. Number 33 on my Patreon page. We're about to publish it right now. All right, go ahead and check it out if you're on the Patreon. This was like an in-between video. I got a lot of parts still coming. This was like an in-between because I still had a lot of clips that I was holding on to. I put them here. But it's about an hour and a half long. Hope you guys enjoy that as well. Okay, we're going to drop it as soon as I finish the live. 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so, it was a fun reading today. I'm going to give you your Tuesday evening back. Much respect to everybody here. Much love. If you tuned in later, I was going back and forth with the chat. We had a live chat going in case you're wondering who I'm talking to. Yeah, a lovely group of people. A lovely group of people, You've been here since the beginning, huh? Yeah, since the beginning of creation, my brother. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, much love. Mucho, mucho amor. I'm not Walter Mercado. Mucho, mucho amor. But I'm not Walter Mercado. If you guys don't know who that is, don't worry about it. um, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to keep going. I'm excited to keep reading more to you. Again, this was a really good reading. Really good reading. We had a really good reading yesterday and the day before. Like, man, we've been reading some good stuff here, and they're all coming together. Everything is coming together. Shout out to Dev D. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. Much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Shout out to Olmec 12 for the beat. Yeah.
Wow.